Hey everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress and welcome to Launch Week 15.1. Today's webinar, What's New for ASP.NET Web Forms and MVC, presented by Web Program Manager Mehul Hari and DevExpress Technical Evangelist Don Webier. In this webinar, see all of the new products and libraries shipping inside our ASP.NET and MVC subscriptions. Thank you for joining us. I will now hand things over to Mehul and Don.
Thanks very much, Amanda, and welcome everyone to the What's New in version 15.1. Don and myself are excited to show you everything for the ASP.NET platform. Now, I want to just make a quick statement. Everything we're going to show today is applicable both to the web forms and MVC unless we specify otherwise. So, if something is not available in one platform versus the other, we'll point that out, or if something feature-wise exists only in one, we'll make sure to point that out as well. But I want to quickly mention the reason this is possible is because when we created our MVC extensions, we created them feature-wise and API-wise to mimic the web forms. And so that's a huge benefit for you when you're moving from one platform to the other, that you get native true MVC extensions, but you get the same familiar, excellent features, cross-platform compatibility, all that great stuff. All right, so there's a lot to cover today, and we're going to dive right in. Now, we're going to cover new controls like the rich editor, card view, responsive upgrades, design time improvements, new demos, and then my colleague Don is going to get into some of the other items like the ribbon, HTML editor, pivot grid, and charts and stuff. So let's start with the rich edit control. Now, in the 14.2 release, we introduced the ASP.NET Rich Text Editor as a community preview. Now, this update marks its official release. So in version 15.1, you've got the ASP.NET Rich Edit control for web forms and for MVC as an extension. Now, the Rich Edit is a powerful Rich Edit control that allows you to work in a Office-inspired, true rich text editor, Word-like document format. And it supports popular formats and all that. So you've got things like docx, rich edit, and so forth, character formatting. And in this release, the reason we are able to release it as community technology preview is because we took all of the feedback that everybody gave us from the last release. So I want to thank everybody who's been using the rich edit, providing us that feedback, because you've helped us make it that much better. So while we had great features like mail merging, editing, we had the great UI, we've improved it even more and added things like numbering and bullets, field support, which I'll talk about in a minute, hidden symbols, hyperlink support, we've updated many of the dialogues. So let's start with a couple of the things first, like the new features, the fields features. So this features is very familiar if you've used Microsoft Word. And what it allows you to do is that it gives you, first of all, a built-in UI for working with fields. And what fields are very much like what you see from Microsoft Word. There's 6 types of fields: date, time, document variable, hyperlink, number, pages, and pages. And they essentially allow you to create a field code that is inserted inside of the rich text document, and then it is also updated at runtime. So your end users can essentially create these by themselves and update them. So the standard ones do things like put in the current date, time, and so forth. So for example, if I wanted to just show the number of fields here, I update that, and that gets updated automatically. Now, we've added something a little bit extra, and that is the document variable support. Now, as developers, you'll understand what variable means. It means that it can be just about any value in there. So let's say I have a specific need in this report to put in the income value as well as a chart to display along with it. So what I've got here is I'm using the document variable, and I pass in a couple of extra parameters. For example, common sales and the word beverages. And same thing here. I want a chart for beverages. And so when I update this fields codes list, you can see that I updated and I get the chart as well as the value with it. And that's because we have introduced a server-side event called calculate document variable that handles this for you, that is able to interpret the doc variable field along with any arguments that you pass along to it. So essentially, you can insert just about anything that you want in there. So it's an excellent, excellent feature that gives you mail merge-like features. Now we've also updated the UI to provide document and operation restrictions. Now we know that in an environment, maybe you're setting up, not everybody should have the same access rights to be able to modify documents. So let's say you wanted to limit certain behaviors of the rich text edit. So you can limit whether they can do cut, copy, paste operations, whether they can do drag operations, if they can make it full screen, or if they can save or open a document, or whether you allow them to even do things like insert pictures using the new fields feature. There's a lot of options available to you, and this truly allows you to control how the end user is able to work with the document. Now, along with that, we've also added a read-only mode. So if you want to use the rich text editor just for its beautiful displaying of the documents, you can do that as well. So that way, because the rich text document is truly an excellent interpreter as well, and it's cross-platform, so it works across not just different operating systems, but different devices as well. So it's a very, very nice editor. So let's move on now. We've also created a new card view control. So this release includes a community technology preview of the DevExpress ASP.NET Card View Control, which provides a Microsoft Outlook-inspired contacts view with integrated data shaping and editing capabilities. So what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at the demo, and I'll show you first of all where this was inspired from. If you've seen our DevAV demo, we've done some webinars on this, and this is an excellent demo that's included with all of our controls. You get the full source code for it. And this demo shows off that you've got the grid view, and you've got, when I click on a row, this detailed information gets updated. So we also want to provide an alternate view to show you how versatile the grid view is. And so we're actually using the grid views template to show the Microsoft Outlook style contacts view, which cards view. And so as I do this update, I'm still getting a detail view, but I'm getting a sort of a different layout than the grid. In the grid, I just get rows and columns, and I've got the picture over here. In the cards view, I can integrate the picture, I can put the information along the right side, and so forth. And so it's a fantastic view that has been used in many online sites like Google's Contacts and Office Online. And you yourself have likely experienced this at some way, one form or another. But it wasn't really easy to create this, because when you work with templates, templates are fantastic at allowing you to be versatile and define the look. But what if you just wanted to actually say, okay, I want to be able to get this up and running without having to define a template? And that's why we introduced the card view control. So the card view control is based on the grid view, the DevExpress ASP.NET Grid View Control, and the DevExpress ASP.NET Data View Control. They both have a common base. Now that's a win for you as a developer, because you get some great features in it automatically, like sorting, filtering, and so forth, a built-in pager, and so forth. But you also get other features. For example, because our data view control is responsive, the card view is responsive as well. And I'm able to easily data bind this. So for example, in the Visual Studio Design Time experience, you can easily come in here and simply bind this to a data source. So here I've got it bound to a SQL data source, and it pulls in those columns for me automatically, and I'm able to work with it. Now we're going to take a look at this Design Time experience as well, as that has improved as well. So the card view in this release, however, is for web forms only, so there is no MVC extension yet. And it's something we are thinking about, but it's a community technology preview, because we're not fully done with it, but we feel it's ready enough for you to start using if you'd like to, and give us your feedback so we can make it even better. Is there any scenarios that we've missed? Is there any features that you'd like to see? Please let us know. Now, one last thing I want to mention is it does also support server mode, and that's because it supports all data binding modes that the grid view or the data view supports as well. Now, just to kind of show you its sort of responsive nature, I really like it. Let's take a look at this in the browser. Now, what's interesting is I'm using the standard DevExpress ASP.NET project template. Now, you'll see that as I resize this browser, the panels are doing the work of collapsing those menu items, but take a look at the card view. The card view has said, oh, I have room to collapse those items as well, and as it expands, it tends to fill them up, and you get this nice proportional ratio. And the reason I mention this is because people would still like us to do even more work towards responsive, and we do every release. Last release we introduced the panels. This release we've got some things that I'll be showing you in a little bit. And people said recently, I got some feedback that said, hey, what about the grid view? You know, have it do some things. And we're thinking of the best way to approach that and you know, we'll support that in a future release. For now, I would recommend take a look at this card view. The card view, you can even set into maybe like a single column and then use whatever display you like. And as you can see, it's really easy to data bind and get your set of fields up and running. But for mobile, I would say a card view might work better for you than perhaps a grid view that might have a lot of information, because the card view is already set up as a single card. And so as I'm scrolling down, let's say if I was on a mobile device, it's much easier to take a look at the one piece of information. And that's what most mobile sites do anyways. They'll use, like, say, they call it a list, but really it's just an expanded template for each item of that list. All right, now let's move on to the responsive and adaptive features that we've improved in this release. Now, I've already talked about the card views responsive features, so let's take a look at the menu and the form layout. In this release, we have upgraded the menu control to support responsive features. And you might say, well, wait a minute, you just showed me the demo for the DevExpress project templates, and that's right. In the last release, we introduced these panels so that when I start collapsing these items, you get this hamburger menu. But what would actually happen is this wasn't the menu creating that hamburger menu. It was actually being done by the panels. And we said, well, let's take this a little bit further. So, you know, what's great about this is now, along with the panels and with the DevExpress menu, they both support great responsive features. In this release, the DevExpress ASP.NET menu now supports the capability to collapse menu items. And so what will happen is, as you lose real estate, items will start appearing in this ellipsis on the right-hand side of the screen. And so what happens is, as you keep collapsing, it still works beautifully even in a mobile device or on the regular full desktop. And what happens is that items get collapsed in here. So how does it decide? Because it actually put my leftmost menu item, home, inside of that ellipsis. So the way it works is that, in general, you can define a feature called adaptive priorities. Now let's take a quick look at this. Now if you take a look at this menu, if you take a look at the source code for this demo, we have the feature is called enable adaptivity, the property of the menu that you can set to true. And for each menu item, you can set the adaptive priority, and that defines. And so items with a 0 priority take a higher precedence. That means that they should be displayed first, and items after that, like 1, 2, 3, will have a lesser priority. So items that have been marked with adaptive priority 1 are going to be collapsed first. So in this case, I've defined everything but products, customers, and employees as 1 so that they get collapsed. So these have no items. That means their adaptive priority is set to null. In essence, it's 0. So those will get collapsed last. Now, if I didn't set any adaptive priority for these menu items, what it would do is, as I started collapsing this, it would take those items from the right side and start putting those in those items. Now, we've done a similar thing for the DevExpress form layout control. The form layout control, as you may be familiar, allows you to create edit forms with ease, because edit forms can be a little bit of a pain to create, layout, and so forth. The form layout control does this for you. Now, what's really nice is that at design time, you can set this up easily. You can tell it how to span a certain column, where it should go, all that good stuff. And now we have supported a responsive layout, because let's say on a full desktop, I've got this capability to show that, hey, this is the 2-column, the memo field spans the bottom. But as I start losing real estate, it switches over to a single column layout. And this works great for just about any device, because these editors will only span the single column. As you can see, it still looks fantastic whether I'm on a wide enough desktop or I'm on a single layout. And what's nice is we have added this property called adaptivity mode, and you can set it to what's called single column window limit. That helps you define when the windows should go over to the single column. And there's also another one called switch to single column at window inner width. So you can take a look at this responsive layout page to see exactly how we're defining this. So in this demo, we're setting it to a limit of 800, and then it starts switching over to that single layout. Now, we've also done some work to update the font new project templates, and you'll see this. The release is just days away, and as soon as the release is available, actually you can start playing with the beta, but once the release is out, you'll be able to see that we've made even upgrades using the menu control and so forth to the DevExpress project templates. Now, I'm happy to announce that in this release we've updated our spreadsheet control as well. This is a powerful control that has been available for a couple of releases now, and it keeps improving. Now, we took a lot of the feedback that you gave us, and one of the most popular features was the ability to improve copy and paste functionality. Now, previously, copy and paste operations worked only with a single spreadsheet document, and that's because the spreadsheet was using an internal clipboard, not the computer's clipboard. However, end users can now use cut, copy, and paste operations using the computer's clipboard and the local keys Control-C, Control-X, and Control-V to transfer data between multiple spreadsheet documents and even between the spreadsheet and an external application like Excel or Word. So that's a fantastic feature. So you'll be able to now simply copy this to Excel, and if you were in Excel, copy it back over to the web version as well. Now, we've also added support for streams. So in the last release, we heard your feedback, and a lot of people said, hey, listen, to really be able to work with a spreadsheet, you need to be able to, you have to actually save a document on your web server and then open it. It did not allow you to work with a stream. And so in this release, a new server-side API, methods and events, has been implemented so you can store, open, and save documents both in the file system and in other locations, such as a database. Now, we've also added this nice UI feature that you would find the same way as you would find in Excel. Now, in Excel, you can select these columns and so forth. But in Excel, when you hit this top leftmost cell, it selects the entire thing. And I'm happy to say now this is supported in ours as well. You can still do Control-A, which selects the entire sheet as well, but this will also select it the same way. Now, we've added this nice feature, and it works really great. A lot of it is done all on the client side. Allows you to resize images. Now, previously, you might be able to resize an image, but you weren't able to resize it proportionally. So in this release, what you can do is hold down Shift, and then as I am resizing, whichever way I resize, it keeps the proportions. Now, when I let go, if I'm not happy with this, I can still hit Control-Z and have it escape back. Now, and I can still use the escape key as I'm resizing to cancel the operation. But it's done for images and charts. Now, we've also added a sort of a slight, small feature, and that is the ability for a client API to access the ribbon object. So what this means is, if, for example, you're using a ribbon object in the topmost part of your website for navigation to move around to different parts of the page, and then you may not want to show a ribbon for the spreadsheet as well. And if you're using a topmost ribbon and you want to be able to access that topmost ribbon from the spreadsheet, there is now a client API allowing you to do that as well. All right, now let's take a look at the binary image control. Now, the binary image control has been around a long time, and in the last release, we actually provided some new features for the binary image control. It's part of the DevExpress editor suite, and in the last release we added features like the ability to resize on the server side. So in this release we have added even more features, and I really like this feature. So it's a smooth, fun, useful feature. It's very obvious for the end users. And what it means is that it allows them to upload an image. So it's a editor. So when you want to allow editing of a binary image, what that means is that whatever image was there before needs to be removed and allow them to upload another image. So in this case, let's say I wanted to upload an image here. Now there is a dialog. There's a couple of icons that are displayed for you, and the first one that allows them to open a file opens a local file dialog chooser. So then when I select a file, I can double click on it, or I select it and click open. It uses the DevExpress ASP.NET upload control to upload that file to the server. And if I'm not happy with this, I can cancel it and open a different file. So it's really very versatile. Now, I also have options on where the buttons are positioned, what the visibility is of the button panel, and so forth. And I've also got this thing that says allow drop-on preview. So let's say I don't like this image at all. I can bring up my local file manager and drag and drop those pictures directly. So you have the option to just simply drag and drop a picture. So I'll drag my buddy Rory's picture on here, or if you wanted, you can drag just about any picture, but it uploads that automatically for you, and it just starts displaying it. So it's a fantastic feature because it's just really obvious. It's almost how you would expect it to work for any image editor on the web, and I believe that your end users will get a kick out of the ability to either upload using that icon or using that file manager. And what I really like is that at DevExpress, we try to reduce code that gets repeated a lot. And so this binary image is used within other controls as well. Just the same way we use our separate pager control in a lot of our other controls like grid view and data view and so forth, we also use the binary image when we need to display a binary image as a column. So this feature bubbles up. So for example, this is now available, same exact feature, in the grid view. So now the grid view has a binary image column editing feature as well. So that way I can come in here and choose a different image if I wanted to. Grumpy cat. All right, so you can still do drag and drop as well. So for example, if you prefer, you can simply come in here and drag and drop the image as well. So it's an excellent feature. You simply set your image to binary column, and if editing is enabled in the grid view, you'll start getting this feature automatically. Okay, now let's talk about the venerable ASP.NET Grid View. This is probably the most popular control in our ASP.NET Suite, and for good reason. We all need a grid view, and we make sure that we try to improve this control out, or at least some aspect of it, with each release. So in this release, we've added some features that I believe are very nice, and most of them are design time features. So we've already saw the binary image column editor. Now let's take a look at the form layout in the editor. Now this actually relates to a design time feature that we've added. So in the last release, you heard me mention that we have improved our design time experience. So we started this work in the last release, and that was that we introduced this designer. Now this designer is available for many of our controls, but in this release we've added this thing called a feature browser. Now for those of you who have used our WinForms controls are probably familiar with this. And what the feature browser does, it allows you to access the most common scenarios of the control to set up. So that way, this allows you to say, well, instead of going and saying, okay, let's say I'm going to data bind here, I'm going to go to properties and set up a summary, I'm going to look for that in the settings, et cetera, et cetera. The feature browser is really nice because it's all in one place. And not just that, it is also linked. So for example, we've got this really helpful information that we pulled from our help documentation, and we bound it to the actual property. So for example, if I click key field name here, it takes me right to that property. Or let's say I want to set up summaries here. Well, it's telling me, listen, before you can set up a summary, you need to enable the show footer property. Okay, well, let's do that. And as soon as I click that check mark, you can see that it set the property to true. Now, I can come in here and say, okay, well, that's great. Now let's start defining and adding summary items. So it is really a beautiful feature of the grid view now because it saves you time. And best of all, you can also data bind directly from the feature browser. So for example, here in the data browser, I've got a data source ID already set up. But if I hadn't, I can select new data source, and that will bring up the standard wizard from Visual Studio for data source configuration. So I can select SQL data source, walk through it, and so forth, and still set that up, and then it'll pull in my columns from the data source. So all of those things for editing, focus and selection, paging, they're all available for you right from this feature browser. Now, I also mentioned the form layout in the editor. So if you take a look, we've also integrated the excellent DevExpress form layout control. So previously, what would happen is when the grid view was running, let's take a look at the grid view here in the browser. So when the grid view was running and you clicked on edit, we actually laid this out for you, and that's because the grid view had an internal layout engine. And again, we don't like to duplicate code. So in this release, we said, okay, well, let's integrate using the form layout control. So that way, anytime the form layout control has any issues and gets fixed, it gets bubbled up, or it gets a new feature, it gets bubbled up to the grid view as well. And so in this release, we have added the form layout, which means at design time, you also get the benefit that the form layout provides you. And what the form layout provides you is the capability to do the layout much easier using a design surface. So for example, let's say I wanted region to span both columns here. I can do that by simply setting that to 2. Or I don't want, I want last name to come before first name. I can say, great, move last name above first name. And as soon as I do that, it's updated for me. And when I go and look at the edit again, you can see I've updated that very easily. There's my region field. It's all possible now because of that integration with the form layout editor. All right, let's move on and be sure to check out this feature browser and that form layout editor. It can save you a ton of time, and it's really a beautiful feature for you at design time. Now, before I hand things over to Don, I want to talk a little bit about demos. Now, we've done some good work on the demos, and the first thing I want to talk about is Entity Framework. Now, you've heard me mention in past webinars, but the ASP.NET team at Microsoft has started supporting the Entity Framework, and they're doing a lot of work towards Entity Framework. And so if you have seen any of their stuff, you know, you're likely going, hey, I want to start using Entity Framework. So we've been getting a lot of questions. So these are the DevExpress feature demos, or what we call technical demos. And there's a lot of them, of course, and most of them, if you go to the ASPX code, you would always find ASPX grid view, and it'll say something like data source ID. Now, normally, as you saw in the Visual Studio, data source ID might say SQL data source. And in previous versions, before 15.1, they will all say SQL data source. And that's because we wanted to show the most common scenario. Most people use SQL data source a lot. What we're finding is that a lot of people are converting. So we have converted all of the DevExpress technical demos over to use Entity Framework. Now you might say, Mehul, why would you do that? Are you trying to complicate my life? Absolutely not. What it means is because ASP.NET now supports the capability to work with models the same way MVC does, we wanted to highlight that DevExpress works with it's very data agnostic. It can work with just about any data backend as long as it supports IEnumerable. And so because customers will come to us and say, how do I work with this Entity Framework, we said, well, okay, let's show that. So the two reasons to switch to Entity Framework was, one, SQL data source is very easy. It's one of the easiest ways to data bind the grid. So we didn't think most people would have a problem with that approach, and we have videos to show that. But Entity Framework can be a little bit more complicated in how you set it up. You have to create a context, you have to create a model, and Don and I were talking, and most likely we will create a webinar for you where we dive into the Entity Framework and what some of these demos are doing. And really, Entity Framework is not very hard. And when you go to an ORM technology like Entity Framework or our own XPO, you get some benefits on top of that. For example, like if you need server-side paging or server mode, as we call it. And there's a lot of other benefits for server-side validation, business logic, all sorts of things. So we'll address that in a future webinar. But please check out our demos with the Entity Framework approach if you are curious how to work with our ASP.NET Controls with Entity Framework. Now, in this release, we have also introduced a new demo called DXDocs. Now, this demo you can find in your local folder. So if you go to DevExpress Demos, if you go to your C Users Public Documents folder, you'll find in there the DevExpress folders for all our demos. So our client-side demos, our server-side demos, and under Components, you'll find ASP.NET, and you can do C# or VB, but you'll find a demo called DXDocs. What DXDocs did, the idea behind this demo was, well, you know, you've seen Google Docs, you've seen Office 365, and now we have DXDocs. Now, this is not a website. This is not a full CMS. It is a demo, but it's a demo that emulates the best of those websites like Office 365. Why? Because we have those controls now. We have a powerful rich text editor, the same way you might find in Office 365, that has all the ribbon control, the beautiful rendering, cross-browser support. We also have the capability with our our spreadsheet control, the ability to display Excel documents online, the same way that you see with the ribbon control and so forth. So, you know, if you are wanting to and you want to create your own internal version, take DXDocs, start playing with it, change around the colors, and as you can see, it works great with sessions as well. So you can have different users. You can have the ability, for example, let's say I wanted to upload. So we added some ability in here to upload some items. So I'm uploading here this item. Or if I wanted to, I can say, no, I want to move it, delete it, download it. A lot of this is built right in. And Don and I will get into this demo in a future webinar to show you how it was built, what controls we're using, how it's laid out, all that good stuff. But for now, you can absolutely start playing with this demo. Now, the last thing I want to mention is a really useful UI feature that I've been using the heck out of. Now, you might be saying, hey, Mehul, you know, you've been doing this stuff for years. Don't you know every feature? Unfortunately, I don't. There's so many out there. There's hundreds and hundreds of features. And I think this is a great benefit. I've been using the heck out of this new feature. And it is this search box that you will find on our technical demos. So if you are looking, for example, you may come to the grid and say, oh, you know, my boss just told me I need to start adding Section 508. Well, I can say, well, let me look up the accessibility features. I've got right to left, Section 508, localization. Oh, Section 508, that's what I need. Or I can just type in 508, and that'll also bring it up as well. And when I click on the results of the grid, it takes me to the exact demo. And I still have that great help documentation here. And if I wanted to go to the actual help, if I click on a property name that is linked, it'll take me to the online help where I can read a lot more information about it as well. So it's a fantastic feature that you can start playing with today. And with that, I will hand it over now to my colleague Don.
Thanks, Mehul. That were some awesome features, but I've got more. Let me first take over the screen and continue with the web charts control. With this release, we are so happy that we can announce that we have created a runtime chart designer for our web chart control. And that means that you can actually offer your users to modify the chart's runtime. And let me show you a little demo of that. So here I've got a chart, and we can now actually start customizing it by show the charts designer. And what you see now is on the left side you have a chart structure here, and on the right side you've got a properties pane, and you can now, for instance, remove series from this chart. So if I don't want to see this series area, I can just untick the box visible here, and it's gone. I could also change some other things like titles. For instance, the title of the chart that we're looking at right now has 2 lines of code, of text. So if I remove this from the properties inspector, you'll see that's being changed. And there are some more things that I can change. I can change font sizes, I can change font colors, I can change even data bindings by clicking one of the series and access the value data members. And here I can fumble around with the numbers. So in case you've got like some other numbers that you want to show, it's not a problem. And you can give this functionality to your end user. And yeah, this is a really powerful feature which just gives you some extra to offer to your end users. Besides this really nice runtime chart designer, we also have done some improvements on the Visual Studio Chart Designer as well. And I do have to mention that the Runtime Chart Designer is available for web forms only. So if you would like to have this feature for MVC as well, just let us know by creating a support ticket. We already had a very rich collection of series types, like the bars, donuts, spikes, etc., etc. But we even managed to add 2 additional types to the series palette. And these are the scattered polar line, which looks like this, and the scattered radar line, which looks like this. And now you're able to visualize those figures as well. Another really nice feature we've added to the chart control now is the ability to obtain the chart colors from a data source instead of a predefined palette. So you can data bind the colors of the bars or the numbers or whatever, and that gives you quite a nice feature as well. And here you see one of the charts which has a data binded color scheme. And if you check out the code below, because this is on the demo side, you'll see exactly how this works. I will not go too much into detail with this feature, but it is just a very convenient feature to create even more attractive charts. The last thing that I'd like to mention is that we are also supporting right to left support with the charts control. So you can now display the charts in the correct order, so to say. Several releases ago, we introduced our ribbon control, which is inspired by the MS Office 2003 ribbon. In the previous release, we have been adding some more functionality in this already advanced navigation control, and we've made it responsive as well. In the 15.1 release, we have added 2 types of ribbon items, and those are gallery items. And let me show you how those look. You've probably seen them all before in Office, and there are basically 2 types. The first I'd like to show is the gallery bar item, and that's the one that you see right here. I'm expanding it right now. It displays an amount of items that will fit inside the control when it is not dropped down. So let me undrop it down and you can navigate through the items in case you have one that you are going to use pretty often, and you can just click it. And because it already has a preview, you will know how this text is going to look. And because this demo is only demoing the ribbon control, it will not have an editor below, so the text inside it will not change in this demo. But anyway, yeah, it gives a much quicker experience to the end user to fulfill some task instead of getting a pop-up and making some selections, etc., etc. The second item is the drop-down gallery item, and that's the one what is shown right here. And this drop-down is more for like if you have specific types of items that you can group in certain things. For instance, font names or shapes can be placed in groups. Excuse me. And that is the second gallery item that we have, and it's just a great addition to this ribbon control. We have also been doing some additions to the HTML editor, which I like really a lot. For instance, the HTML editor now supports placeholders, And you've already seen something at the beginning of the webinar in the rich text editor. And we can do something similar in the HTML editor as well. And to show you how that works, I've got a HTML editor right here, and you'll see the codes between the curly brackets. And these are actually the merge points, so to say. And what happens if I tick the preview results button, you'll notice in this case that Andrew's details are being merged inside this document. And if I go to Margaret, you'll see Margaret's details. And this is because of those placeholders. There are some service ID events which can be handled to insert the correct data inside those placeholders. And yeah, this is very convenient for templates or CMS kind of templates, mail merge, and all that kind of stuff. Another feature that I'd like to show that we have been adding is also a really nice one, and that is the tag inspector. In a lot of HTML editors, you'll have something which looks like this tag inspector. So you have a clear view on which position you are inside the document. So in this case, I'll be inside a paragraph, and this text is being strongly printed. If I click down to some random other cell, then you'll see that this path is being changed to whatever I'm in right now. And the coolest feature, I think, is that if I select the text in this element that we're in, I can click this little edit button. And what happens now is that you will get the properties that can be edited inside this cell. And in this case, we have the horizontal align and the vertical align and the background color. And I could easily change the background color without going to the HTML code or changing some stuff inside the source code. And as you can see, it's now been updated. And if I click on this text above, you'll notice that I will have a number of different properties because it is a different HTML element which has different attributes. So this is a very powerful feature which makes sure that the HTML is clean before it's being posted back into your backend. And yeah, for everybody who doesn't know all the HTML attributes, it's just an easy way to change those parameters. So again, also a really powerful, neat feature. And yeah, talking about getting clean HTML inside your backend, we have something what we call content element filtering, which is a really nice feature if you want to have precise control on what elements will be accepted by your system. Because you might be aware that validating HTML entered by an end user is a pretty difficult task. And we have now added some black and white lists into the HTML editor, which allow you to specify which HTML elements can be used and which elements are forbidden. So in this case, I've got a little demo here. And as you can see, it's now displaying an image, it's displaying some text, etc., etc. But suppose I don't want end users to insert images. Well, I can go to the tag filter settings, and in this case it is in whitelist mode, so that means that all tags which are below the whitelist drop-down are allowed. And that means that if I remove the image out of this control and I will apply the settings, you'll notice that the image has been gone. This has been filtered out because of this content element filtering feature. And it does not only do that on HTML elements, it does it on attributes as well. So we have specified an attribute filter settings mode here. And again, you can specify whitelist or blacklist. And in this case, only these attributes are allowed. And in case that you put it on blacklist, these items are not allowed. So probably if I hit apply settings, something will be stripped down in my document, as you can see, because it has removed all those attributes from the source. So this is an excellent feature to make the HTML editor more secure, and you will get the text you expect, so to say. What we have done further is we've done a couple of design time enhancements, and one of them you've already been seeing is a feature browser for the HTML editor, and for that I'll switch over to my Visual Studio project, and here you have the design time view of the HTML editor. If I tick the task button and next click the designer, you will have a HTML editor designer like you saw with the grid. And in this case, it's got some different settings, because you can now choose whether you want to use a toolbar or you want to have a ribbon. And if you have to do that through the property inspector, it'll take some time, because there are quite a bunch of properties that needs to be set. And with this new feature browser, we can just say, okay, I want to have bars, and I want to have a simple one, or I want to have a standard one, or I want to have everything available, and it will include the tag inspector as well. And I can also say, nah, I want to go for the ribbon, because I want to use the new gallery items. So in that case, you can just tick ribbon, and because the ribbon, one of the functions of the ribbon is to have a lot of controls in there. We will not have a simple version of the ribbon control, but you can choose for the standard one, which will have like the basic features, and the advanced one, which has everything again. And once you're happy with it, you can click the button Generate Preset, and it will redo the HTML editor and include all the necessary properties and text inside your markup. So this will save you quite a bit of time when setting up the HTML editor. Another thing is that we have some general settings like design view, HTML view, I want to have the tag inspector or not, and stuff like that. And it's just as Mehul was mentioning, most features that you would use are placed on an easy position inside this designer, so you'll have set up the HTML editor in minutes. So again, another nice feature. And the last thing I'd like to mention is a couple of miscellaneous enhancements, like you are now able to include absolute path for inserted resources like images. And we've also updated the insert media dialogues to support that feature, so they will also look a bit fresher and stuff. And I think that's one of the things that we heard now and then, like, okay, I should be able to insert absolute paths instead of relative paths. So also that is available right now. Then we have one major improvement on the pivot grid, and the pivot grid, for everybody who hasn't used it, is a really powerful data mining tool which allows you to select and filter lots of data. And yeah, this is a very convenient tool for people who are into these kind of figures and they want to make selections or queries and I don't know, whatever. This pivot grid is an excellent tool for that. And I mean, people who are working with these kind of controls are also pretty happy with Excel, and we had some things with the export feature of this pivot grid, but now we are happy to announce that we have switched over to a different exporting engine that we were using already in some other portions of our controls, which is way faster, and it also allows you to export some really nice tricks. So for instance, if I have this grid, you'll notice that there are a couple of frozen panes on the left side. And there are also a number of groups which I can collapse and expand. And again, these are all features that belong inside this pivot grid. If I want to export these results to Excel, we have a new feature which is the Excel Data Aware feature. And if I select that one and I click Export, it will be downloaded, and once I open it, you'll notice a couple of interesting things, because we managed to export also this grouping. So I can collapse those groups, and I can also collapse columns, groups of columns, just like the pivot grid is offering you. So this is a really powerful feature, and I didn't even mention that the frozen columns are also frozen in Excel. So basically it saves, it makes an exact copy inside Excel, and a nice performance improvement is that it runs way faster as the previous export functionality. So for this, yeah, this is absolutely a fantastic feature on this pivot grid as well. The last control that I'd like to mention is our file manager. In the previous release, we've added some nice features like the cloud providers, which allows you to connect the file manager to Dropbox, Amazon S3, and Azure Blob Storage. We have done some visual enhancements as well as some user experience enhancements as well. So let me show you the first feature, which is the Office, the OneDrive style selection. So in this case, I have a file manager, and if I want to select a number of files, I can hover over, and in this case the checkbox appears. And now, because I've got one file selected, I can select whatever file I like without using the Shift key, holding down, or the Control key, or whatever. I can just tick the boxes and go. And this is a really convenient way, because a lot of end users have difficulties with Control, Shift, and then making selections. So yeah, this is an excellent feature which makes life easier. Another thing that we have done is we have implemented a template for the file area. So that means that, let me open the demo up. That means that all the items that you see here are being formatted by using a template. And the template is as simple as a template in the grid view or in an ASP repeater. It is, yeah, it's just looking like this, and in this case you can actually choose, or you can create two types of templates. One is for the detail view, and the other one is for the thumbnail view. And yeah, you bind some information to it, like the file size and the file name, etc. And you can style it any way you like because of those templates. Another thing that you might have noticed already is we have now the possibility, let me go to the features demo because that includes it. We now have the possibility to display folders in the file area as well. So if I move up to images here, you'll see that the employees folder and the product icons folder are in there as well. And it makes it just easier for your end users to navigate. You don't need to go inside the tree. They can just double click the product icons and you're in there. And because we're supporting that feature, it shouldn't be fair not to include this go up functionality as well. So in this case, you will just go up one level. Another thing that you might have seen is we have this navigation of the breadcrumb navigation basically. So that means that if I select any folder, and it doesn't matter if I select it in the tree or I select it in the files area, these breadcrumbs are updated, and I can now switch back to the files in one go to music, and oh no, I still wanted to go to video. And it makes it really fast to navigate throughout the file system. I can also go up one level by clicking this little fella. So we have now basically a file explorer which is almost behaving natively, just like the Windows Explorer. A last thing that I'd like to mention is that you are also able to do file uploading, and you've already seen how easy it is, but I'll demonstrate it one more time just because I love this. I can just get one file and drop it here. and in a matter of seconds, it has arrived. And that's not only it. I can also get a couple of files and just drag them here, and in a couple of moments they're here as well. So this file manager is almost behaving natively. You can drag and drop stuff like that. And the last thing that I'd like to mention is that it is also possible to hide this bottom upload control, but still enable the file uploading, what I just did by dragging and dropping. And you'll get a nice tooltip which displays the progress, which makes it even look nicer. So again, these are some really nice user interface additions to the file manager, and obviously these features will all work when connecting to Dropbox, Azure, and Amazon as well. So those were the things that we'd like to show you. Mehul, are there any questions that we can answer right now?
Yes, there are. So the first one is, in the last release you talked a lot about the file manager's support for Azure and Amazon and Dropbox. What about OneDrive?
We are investigating the possibilities for that, and the reason that we're investigating is that they have just made some major changes to the API, and we need to check those features out.
Excellent, excellent. All right, let me address. Let me take over the screen here, and people have been asking about ASP.NET V5. So let's see if I can address this. ASP.NET V5 web forms. Now, I think a lot of people are curious about how web forms fits in with ASP.NET, because let's just start in general. If you've not seen yet, take a look from Build, which was just about a month ago. Julie and I were there, and we talked a lot, and Microsoft has not released ASP.NET V5. Microsoft is coming close to finishing ASP.NET. They haven't announced an exact date, but they said that they will be a release cycle behind when Visual Studio ships, whenever Visual Studio ships. We're not sure either. But what we do know is that it's in beta, and in general our policy is not to support beta items just because things are changing. Now, every week, if you want to follow the Microsoft team, they're on YouTube. You can see the program manager talking about all the changes they're making each week. It's all good stuff, but it's a different ASP.NET. So if you're used to ASP.NET currently, ASP.NET VNext is very different. So if you go to ASP.NET/VNext and start watching these videos and their little YouTube updates and all that stuff here, you'll start seeing that they've done a lot of work to help modernize ASP.NET. So they have rewritten parts of ASP.NET from the ground up so that now it can work on different platforms. So they're working on getting it so that it can work on a Raspberry Pi. They've already got it working on OS X, and Linux. And so they are working hard to improve that cross-platform story. So what does that mean for web forms? Well, they have actually said, though, that web forms is different in that web forms has deep ties to things like system web. And system web is an assembly that is necessary for web forms. So web forms is going to be updated in the next release of ASP.NET. So when you say something like ASP.NET 5, this is an umbrella term for the new ASP.NET VNext stuff that they're working on, which is MVC 6.0. And ASP.NET, 4.6, I think it's called. And web forms is part of that stack called ASP.NET 4.6. And DevExpress, ASP.NET controls, and MVC extensions will work on that stack of ASP.NET 4.6. The new MVC 6.0 will not support, our controls likely will not work in that scenario. We're still investigating it, but when I say our controls, I mean our server-side controls. And that's because what Microsoft's vision is, really, it's very different. It's more like the Node client-side HTML5 approach. And so for that scenario, I believe our DevExtreme HTML5 controls will be able to help address that. So when the new ASP.NET comes out, I know it's still a bit confusing to go version this, version that. So if you're looking for cross-platform, you want to start taking a look at our HTML5 controls, because ASP.NET Web Forms is amazing, it's awesome, but it is definitely requires IIS, and it's something that, you know, we're going to continue supporting it. And Web Forms is getting updates. If anybody tells you Web Forms is going away, you know, this is the guy, Scott Hunter, who owns ASP.NET and all of .NET really at Microsoft. And so he has said that no, Web Forms is not going away. It's just that they're also introducing this other aspect of ASP.NET. Just like ASP.NET has SignalR, ASP.NET has Web API. ASP.NET has a lot of parts to address different things, and so they just wanted to make ASP.NET more modular. And therefore, I'm like I said, if somebody's asking me, will we work in the next ASP.NET coming out, I will say yes. But if you're saying, will it work in that one that's cross-platform, probably the way we're going to address that is with DevExtreme. And so Don and I, we are going to show you all the good new stuff in DevExtreme, which is our client-side controls. Now, client-side controls means JavaScript, meaning not server-side. The things work on the client side. So we're going to cover all the mobile stuff, all the web development stuff this Friday. So tune in, check it out. We're not going to talk about ASP.NET in that webinar. When ASP.NET 5 is released, we will absolutely do a webinar and talk about it then. For now, though, rest assured, it's something we're looking into. We know it's coming out. Mark and the Coders team, they've already announced that they're going to be supporting Roslyn, which is also in the next Visual Studio. So there's lots of good stuff happening at DevExpress. You know, when the Xamarin stuff came out, you saw Julian and Paul. They announced a free grid for Xamarin. So DevExpress is right there at the crux of all this new things coming out. And if we don't release it publicly, that's because we're just waiting for the technology to be generally available to everybody. All right, I saw a lot of other questions, and I don't want to keep people too long, but there's a lot of questions about, hey, will this rich text editor, what about its state, what about its sessions? Please contact us at support@devexpress.com, or go to devexpress.com/support and log a ticket. A lot of our guys were online today and helping a lot answer those lot of questions. But you have specific scenario questions. How do I do layout with Pivot Grid if it's got server mode on? Those are all questions we can help answer. Now, if I've missed anything, I apologize. Let me see. Bring up that slide. Oops. Oh, sorry, this is my slide. Don had the better slide with both of our emails. So Don is donw@devexpress, and that's me, mharry at DevExpress. So with that, Amanda, I'll hand it over. And thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you joining us today for this webinar.
Awesome. Thank you, Mehul. All right, everybody, like Mehul mentioned, we do have more 15.1 launch webinars coming up this week and next. You can register at devexpress.com/webinars. And again, today's webinar will be available later on our YouTube channel, and you can watch it there at your own convenience. I'm going to post that link right now in the chat box for you. And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Mehul and Don. Thank you all for joining us. And, of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.